couple of seconds afterwards.
This meeting is being recorded.
Welcome. This is Edna White, your host for today. I am an author and a life purpose coach, and I love what we do here at Keeping It Real on Purpose. This is the place, the podcast where you come together with real people and we talk about real issues and struggles in life, relationships, and in business, all on purpose. Now, today, our guest is, and you know me, audience, I kind of massacre names and they will correct me because they love me. But I'm going to get this one because I want to get this one. Her name is Mart-Mari Breedt, and she's an author of 8 Kilos of Shame. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's so nice of you to have me on the show.
Oh, excellent. So how do you show up in the world?
I think I show up as an imperfect person in this world.
Oh.
Yes. Yeah, well, I try to celebrate my imperfections because, for many years I tried to be a perfectionist and that didn't work out too well. So,
Well, it doesn't work out too well for most of us, right? When we try to be a perfectionist, it doesn't work out. So tell us about being an author of this beautiful book, 8 Kilos of Shame.
80, yeah.
And the process of losing the emotional weight. I love this. So go ahead and talk about it.
Yeah, it was because over the period of 2017 to 2019, I lost 80 kilogram, which is, you said it earlier, 176 pounds.
Yes, okay. That was like, whoa.
Yeah. So I got to the end of this race journey, this weight loss journey, and I asked, well, what now? At that stage, I had 3 crutches that I could lean on. I weighed myself every day. That perfectionist part of me is coming out. I did group talks at the weight loss group I went to. I did my group talks there, and I did my running. I became a runner. I started running at the end of 2018, and and then I did those free things, and eat as well as I could. Did them religiously, trying just to keep this weight off, and and then 2020 happened. I mean, that I reached goal weight at the end of 2019. 2020 happened, which was a disaster. So it's because lockdown started, and suddenly I couldn't run outside in the street anymore. In South Africa, we couldn't exercise outside, and I couldn't do my group talks anymore. So I only had this weighing myself every day crutch to keep me going, which is not ideal. So I started grabbing at doing videos online and running in my garden. I ran around a tree in my garden which was absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, I was so obsessed with keeping this weight off, and one day I would weigh myself and I was like, there's got to be more to life than this. I've worked so hard to lose this weight, and now I'm still trapped. I'm still a slave of this process.
Yeah,
and I started working with a therapist shortly after lockdown started, and I've just been through this emotional journey on why am I so obsessed about my weight? Why can I just not live a normal life? And and also I wanted to know things about, but we might get into that later, about why I never grieved my sister's death and things like that. But and there was at one stage I came to this realization in this therapy journey, and that was about emotional eating. And that realization was so intense that I had to share it. I was like, but other people are doing this as well. They've got to know that they're doing this.
Yeah.
So I made a Facebook page, and I decided I'm going to do my first video about emotional eating on my Facebook page, and it just ballooned from there. And then
Yeah.
at the end of 2020, a stranger contacted me, and she heard my message about emotional eating, and she
Mhm.
said, well, I think you need to write a book
Right,
about
right,
what you've
right.
been through. I was like, you crazy woman. so um so so yeah, that's that. I was writing a little bit, but not, not writing, not
Yeah.
like a
Yeah,
book
because
book writing.
one part of your book says that you started to write the book and you got writer's block.
Yes, the first that I decided I'm gonna actually try this now.
Yeah.
Then I was like, well, what do I write? It's like I have no clue where to start. Um, so yeah, so I wrote the book, which was basically the entire 2021 was
Right,
writing this book,
right, right.
and which was in itself a therapy journey.
Yeah.
Just getting the words out on paper, and yeah, and ever since then I've published this book, and I've received great feedback from it, and
Mhm.
I now have my next book that's coming out now.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah,
Okay.
so yeah, I became a writer, and
Okay.
I
I
still don't
like
know how
that. I
long.
like that you were, and you know what you did, and you didn't really do it on purpose. A lot of times, a lot of authors do not do any research, and that's what you did. Is you literally took your video and started before you wrote the book, and literally what you were doing is really making chapters. So you did the research to see that if there were people interested, and that's a really good point. If for anyone that wants to become an author, is do the research before you write a book. Do the research, start introducing yourself about that subject around the book before. So that was really good,
Yes, I think that's
Mart
a great
Mart-Marie.
Mart-Mari. I think my emotional eating video, even though it was my first video,
Uh-huh.
I had like what, 10 followers on my page
Right.
when I started. And that emotional eating video has now been viewed over 7,000 times.
Wow.
Um, and
That's good.
that's just from starting with just a little handful of followers. And
Yeah,
yeah.
that was good. Oh, that's good. So, I read your book, and I want you to expound on two chapters, but I'm gonna give you the first one, which I really love the title, and I want you to share a little bit about this chapter to our audience and to me. But it's on page 71, Born Wrong. Tell me the I guess the inclination on how you wrote this chapter. What made you write this chapter?
Oh my goodness, Born Wrong was it was it now when part of a therapy journey is that you sort of dig and dig and dig, and you go back further and further into the past.
Okay, right.
And I wanted to try and understand, why was it that my relationship with my mother was the way it was, because it was,
Hmm.
to me, it was irrational. The
Right,
way she treated me and what she did, and I feel like I was innocent in this. At some stage I must have been a teenager, and I was obviously not innocent, but
right, right, right.
but yeah, and I actually went back all the way to the day that I was born, and decided it
Hmm.
must have started going wrong there already. That
Then,
Yeah, it was so
wow.
interesting because on the day that I was born, my mom had to have a cesarean section. My older sister, she was born naturally, so that was my mom's first cesarean section,
Hmm.
and her, unfortunately for her, her C-section caused her to I don't know, didn't heal well enough, or something went
Right.
wrong in that process, and she started developing sepsis in her wound, and that caused her, well, that's how I understood it then, but that caused her to have these hernias that she struggled with.
Wow.
Okay.
Mhm.
And lo and behold, later on in my life, after my eldest daughter was born, so she was also my second child. She
Mhm.
after she was born, I started struggling with hernias as well. And
Oh.
and I was like, yo, okay. So I kept this a secret from my mom at that stage. So because I was afraid that because my daughter's birth was also quite traumatic, I thought
Mhm.
my mom is gonna blame that, gonna end up blaming my daughter for my hernias, the way she's blamed
Ah,
me
yeah.
for her hernias. And I didn't want
Right, right.
that to happen at all. So, so yeah, and then at the end of the day, after, because I started my weight loss journey with the goal of repairing these hernias, because they
Mhm.
were troubling me a lot. So,
Mhm.
so after, it's actually quite sad when after I went for my final checkup at
Right.
at the surgeon that did my hernia operation, I asked him what can be the cause possible, what can I do to avoid this in future? What should I do?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
he's like, well, a weak gastric membrane probably runs in your family, given your history and things. That there was probably nothing you could do to avoid. And I spent my entire life believing that my birth was the cause of my mom's hernias. And she made me feel that way, not directly. She never said, you are to blame.
Right.
But whenever she told a story, she would start with, on the day Mart-Mari was born, blah, 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 blah. And it,
Mhm.
and she told that story a lot. I mean, she suffered from hernias. Everybody knew about it. Everybody, it was, and I was always the one that was to blame for that.
Mhm.
And I
The
think,
way the story was told, that
yes,
you
and
were
I
to blame.
think
Yeah.
that, yeah, that just caused a dynamic between me and my mom that just spiraled into other issues.
Right,
And
right.
yeah, yeah. So
Well, that
I
was
think,
great work you did. Really great work. Like you dug into that because most people wouldn't dig into that. And the other thing I wanted to say to you is that when you ask the doctor, right? Because you notice the dynamic, the pattern. So, but when you ask the doctor, is there something that I can do about this? And that doctor probably was an idiot, you know, oh, it runs in your family. I'm like, you know, but you were actually breaking generational patterns because you inquired to do something better, which is dynamic for you. That's beautiful. I think that's beautiful. You can
y-
continue. Sorry, I wanted to say that because I think it was
no,
so beautiful what you did. So beautiful.
thank you. No, I wanted to say I was so scared to ask the doctor that. Because in the
Yeah.
back of my mind, I wasn't sure
Mm-hmm.
because my daughter's birth was not, it didn't go exactly as planned. It was also an emergency C-section.
Right,
It
right,
was rushed. And I started feeling these symptoms of the hernias not long after she was born.
right,
And because of that, I wasn't sure if that could possibly have been the cause.
right,
So
right, right.
so I waited until that last checkup with him. Then because we had a long checkup.
Mhm.
The recovery for that operation was quite intense. And
Right.
and I waited until that very last checkup to ask him,
Mm-hmm.
almost hesitantly, like not directly wanting to ask, do you think this is because of her birth? And
Right.
yeah, yeah, that was
Very strenuous. It was a
yeah.
challenge, and I could see how the way even you explain it now, you had in the back of your mind, what happened with you, and you didn't want to blame your daughter, like your mother blamed. You had all this stuff going on in your head, and you know, my mom was similar. We had always had like this thing. I knew she loved me, but we had this thing this unspoken thing that was going on was weird, you know. And I had to address it like you did, and fortunately, it was something simple. And I'll tell you, it was literally. She used to always tease me about cooking. Okay, I was a young mother early, So what did I learn to cook? I learned to cook things like that child like macaroni and cheese, things like that. And I wasn't a eater for cultural food, Black cultural. I wasn't one of those eaters. I just didn't like it. It was just that my thing. I wasn't, one of those eaters. And so cooking in the Black culture, means all soul food. You're supposed to make that, and I didn't. I was more of like leaning on the vegetable side, things like that. And so every time we all get together, it would come out, I don't know how to cook. I don't know how to cook. I don't know how to cook. Now, by that time, I had 3 children. And I used to hear this year and I used to get so frustrated. And I know it wasn't true, but I don't know how to cook. And then one day she said it. And so everyone had left. So I sat with her and I said, I really don't feel great when you say that to me, because I do know how to cook because my children are grown. If I didn't know how to cook, they wouldn't be alive, and I
Yes,
said,
exactly.
and you have to face it head on. And she said, I didn't know that was bothering you. I said, because I didn't say anything, but I don't like it, and it's not true, it's not true. And I said, then it makes you look bad because you're my mom and you were supposed to teach me how to cook. So she looked, she was she was like, it was like pop, and I was like, sometimes they don't know what they're saying. You know what I mean? They don't get what they're saying. They're just trying to be maybe facetious, and then, or and there's a little jealousy mixed in there and the resentment kind of in there that they've not talked about what they should talk about. But it's great to face it, head on, and like you did, make yourself feel better in some way. Even though maybe you didn't talk to her, you try to make yourself feel better. So that's great. That's really great stuff.
Yeah, because I never had the well, I won't say I never had the opportunity, but I never had the courage to go and talk to
Mm-hmm.
her
Right, right.
about these things and how it made me feel and everything. And she was so short fused
Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
yeah, if you were to talk to her, she would just explode, and
Yeah.
you couldn't. It just
And
just wasn't possible.
that's what regret and
Mm.
resentment looks like. Shows up explosive. That's how my mom was. This is regret and everything. And really, when we got down to it, really had nothing to do with me. She really wanted to be with my dad. Family didn't let them be together. So it was like a whole thing that had nothing to do with me. Totally had nothing to do with me. But of course, I was the one that was, in her face reminding her what she could have had with my dad. So it really, most of the time, it's really not about you. It's about something they've, got going on there. It really
Yeah,
is. So,
and
I just wanted to tell you that.
I think that is one of the things that I also try to do in the book, because I don't blame. I
Right.
don't, I
Exactly.
never, actually, I pertinently say it in the book that my intention is not to blame anyone
Hmm.
because I put the food in my mouth.
Right.
I was the one who didn't go and exercise.
Right.
It was nobody's fault. And I tried to bring in that empathy and forgiveness for
Right.
the people who could have possibly played a role in this.
Right.
So so yeah, I think forgiveness is a big part of healing, and
Mhm.
understanding. People try to act in the best way possible with the
Mhm.
information they had then, with the resources they had, and um,
Right.
and yeah, and sometimes things are just messed up.
Yeah. They're messed up. You're right. That is so true. That really, and we got to deal with it the best way we know how to. And where those people are is, family or not, we have to meet them where they are. We can't believe that, oh, they could be the mother or the father or the sister that they're supposed to be, or that we heard in the story,
Yes.
your storybook life. And really, we're living a life that, has its challenges, and we have to go through them. So you're doing a great thing by doing this. Now, Mart-Mari, my
Yes.
other section I'd like you to talk about is the fruit of being myself. I love this title. I love this chapter And I know you talk about overweight people in this one. So tell us about that.
Originally, I don't know if I wrote, I think I wrote it there. I don't know if I wrote it in that, but yeah, I think I did.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, my second book is coming out, so I'm already like in that mind.
Okay.
But
Forget this baby. I got a new baby.
no, the fruit of being myself, I wanted to be the last chapter in the book.
Right. Okay.
I had this idea of I'm gonna sketch this utopia, you know, how wonderful it is to be to be a normal weight and not
Mm-hmm.
carry all this extra weight with me, and
Right. Right.
you know, I wanted to I thought I'll conclude like that, on that happy
Mm-hmm.
note. Okay.
Right.
And then a few chapters came in after that. But
Yeah.
yeah, so the fruit of being myself was my realization that that the weight is actually not the problem. Okay.
Nope. Never
The
is.
weight, yeah, I always say, it's probably one of the things I say most on my page. The weight is not the problem. The weight is a
Mm-hmm.
symptom of the problem.
Symptom. That is
Yeah.
correct. So very
Yes.
true.
So so I couldn't talk about the fruits, or the fruit
Right.
of
Mm-hmm.
being a normal weight,
Okay.
because that wasn't applicable. The fruit came
Right.
from just being myself, finally being
Right.
myself.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, I was overweight for what, 37 years. I don't think
Yeah.
I ever was myself, ever were.
Right.
What remember, I'm Afrikaans. My English sometimes runs out. So, but yeah, I wrote about, you know, self-love, and
Mm-hmm.
finally accepting who I am and the things that I can do, and
Mm-hmm.
um yeah, and how it wasn't about the weight at all. I could have probably been this person long ago,
Long ago. Right. Right.
but
Yeah.
I was so limited in my mind, that I
Mm-hmm.
just couldn't allow myself to be that
Yeah.
person.
That's the word. Couldn't you allow yourself? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you say in here, you want to be. I want to be happy. I want to be healthier. I want to look better. I want, and that's a great thing to say, I want, because it's really close to I am, because you're getting your mind ready to I am this, but it's also freeing because that exists. That happiness exists. That your real self exists. And that awareness alone probably is almost like a pin that popped you and said, hey, I can be this. And that was what was behind, like you said, behind the weight is behind all of that was the reason. That pain was the reason, not the weight. It wasn't that.
Yeah, because the day that I reached my goal weight, I wasn't suddenly happy. It didn't
Mm-hmm.
work that way. You know,
Right, right.
people have this thing to say that no, losing weight is or well, being overweight is hard, you know,
Right,
and
yeah, of course.
eating well and exercising is also hard. Okay, so pick your heart. But
Yeah.
that makes it sound like at some stage things are going to get easy, and that's not true. It's not true that the
No,
day that you reach your goal, but suddenly everything is easy and you're happy, and you're going to
no,
be this confident, beautiful person, and it's just going to work that way. It doesn't. It's the biggest
no,
lie told.
it is. I
You're
like
gonna,
that. Yeah.
yeah, you're gonna get to this goal weight, and you're gonna realize you still, the first 2 weeks you might be elated because you've
Right,
reached this
right.
huge milestone and everything, but sooner or later you're gonna realize you're the same person that you've always been, with the same
Just thinner.
problems and the same, yeah, the same friends who don't like you, and the same
Yeah,
maybe husband that gets irritated with you, and the same children that doesn't want to
yeah.
listen, and it's not going to change because you've lost weight.
No.
Um, yeah, I needed to
You
work
got to
on,
look into that, right? You said you got to look
yes,
into that.
I've got to, yeah, and that the fruit of being myself is, I think, just one of the most beautiful chapters, that it just says, I got all these gifts, but
Yeah.
it was from losing my emotional weight, not from my
Yeah.
physical weight.
Right. Yeah. That's good. Let's talk about the emotional weight. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, the emotional weight was, because that's how the title came to be, the 80 kilos of shame. When
Hmm.
my therapist at one stage in my therapy journey, he said that if I could take all the emotional weight that I carry with me and I
Hmm.
would put it on a scale, that would weigh 80 kilograms. So while I've lost the physical weight, I still need to work on losing that emotional weight. And that emotional weight was, is now, no, I think the easiest way to explain it is like this. If you look at children, okay,
Hmm.
when they're born, when they're very small, they love themselves. You can see it in the way that they talk, in the way that they dance, and they look in the mirror and they laugh, you
Yeah.
know. They adore themselves, and then
Yeah.
life happens. They like, and your friends wouldn't play with you over break time, or you're not invited to a party, or you keep on failing your tests, or your boyfriend dumps you, or you go for job interview after job interview and you just don't make it. And
Hmm.
no, and everything just keeps piling up, all taking chunks out of this self-love that
Yeah.
you were born with it.
Sure.
But life takes chunks out of this self-love the whole time. And then some
Hmm.
people, their personality allows for them. They're confident and they can sort of brush it off and, "Oh, no, what nonsense." And other people go into depression, and some people turn to food and drugs and alcohol and things to try and cope with this. And yeah, and all these things that happen is emotional weight. No, it's the things that make you feel that you're not worthy, you're a failure, you're never gonna get anywhere in life. And um yeah, and I needed to lose that. I needed to lose that
Yeah.
mindset and to stop,
Yeah.
because for years I was trying to numb these feelings that I had about
Hmm. Hmm.
myself with food, because food
Right.
loved me and I loved food and we got on very well. And
Yeah.
yeah, no, it was an addiction. That
Right.
made me feel better about myself and feel
Hmm.
worse about myself at the same time.
Right.
So yeah, so that's the way that I had to lose, was that emotional weight, and to
Yeah.
stop trying to numb those feelings of worthlessness and actually replace it with feelings of being worthy. And yeah,
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's really powerful what you said. And audience, I hope you're really taking note to this, because this is where a lot of us women are in the emotional weight thing. And it was a very poignant what Mart-Mari said, is that it wasn't the weight she took off, but the weight of the mind is what she really had to take off. Because I see people who get these, the quick fix surgeries or things like that to lose weight. And it doesn't, I've seen people, it doesn't work, because it's not the weight, it's the
that's the
mental
problem.
weight. Yeah, it's the mental weight that's
Mm.
happening. It really is.
Yeah, they're trying to solve the the symptom. They're putting a
Mm-hmm.
plaster on the symptom
Right, right.
and not
Something.
looking, yeah, they're not looking at what's the cause.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, and I think that's how the best way to explain it is the weight is a symptom of the
Right.
problem, not
Exactly.
the actual problem.
Mm-mm. So what's on the horizon for you? You were talking about a new book. Can you share with my audience what that new book will be?
I can share a little bit about it.
Okay,
So
all right, just the
last year,
title.
no, I know, no, I'll share a little bit more than that. Now,
Okay,
last year I enrolled, or yeah, enrolled is I think is the right word, for my or entered my first marathon. So
right,
for what 42.2, I don't know how many miles is that, 42.2 kilometers. Okay,
right.
so my first full marathon, and my second book is about my training for that.
Okay, okay,
Yeah, so the title is my first marathon training, and the subtitle is 80 kilograms down, a marathon to go. So that's that that is my new book that's coming out. And yeah, it's
okay.
all about, yeah, I wrote it as a diary. I
Hmm.
wrote a little piece each day of
Right,
my
right.
training, and it goes about time management and
Hmm.
building a relationship with my coach, and
Right.
all the insecurities I felt because I didn't believe that I could do it. I mean, I only started running
Hmm.
half marathons last year, and yeah, so it's about working hard, working towards something I never thought I
Okay,
was going to do. Um, yeah, that's
okay.
what it's about.
Excellent. And how can our audience find you on social media? We can find the book. Where can we find the book
Yeah,
on social media?
you can find me on Facebook. I've placed links on my webpage, and I'm
Okay.
also on Instagram. My teenage son says I'm very old-fashioned with Facebook, but I still prefer Facebook. It's so you
Okay.
can search for Mart-Mari Breedt blog, or you can search for Mart-Mari B at martmarib.com. You can go to that, yes, and
Okay.
you can find me on Instagram. Also,
Nice. Mhm.
martmarie.breed. So,
Okay. All right. So this is the part of the show, Marie, that we ask our guests, something personal about them. What is it that you love to do in your home, just that you love to do, or outside, something that you love to do that only you enjoy?
I think reading would be that for me. I love. The other day I said, a while ago, I told a friend of mine, I don't think you can be a writer if you're not a reader. So,
Yeah.
I love, I'm sure you love to read as well. If I
Oh
take
yeah.
how quickly you've read this book, it's, yeah, but, yeah, so I love to read. The best thing for me if I can go and lie on my bed with a good book and
Right.
yeah, spend that time away in that, yeah, in that
Yeah, you get
magical
absorbed in another
place.
story. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that. And what would you, the last and final words, what would you say to other authors who want to get started? What is one of the things that you can encourage them to do?
I would say try to write if you can daily, but not force it. No, if you feel, try to write a little bit each day if you feel inspired enough to do that, getting into the habit of that. That's I always say you're successful at something if you can do it every day.
Right.
That's like
Right.
running also for me. So, and
Hmm.
then also not to be scared.
Yeah.
Don't wait for that contract or that thing that someone's going to say, oh, write this now for me. Or,
Right.
don't wait for everything to be in place. Just start with something. Start with what you have, what you can do, you know, the resources available to you. Yeah, just start. Don't wait.
Don't wait. Just start. Don't wait, ladies and gentlemen. And everybody in between, don't wait. Okay, so I would really thank you, Mart-Mari, for being here today. We thank you for sharing 80 kilos of shame and talking about emotional eating. This is something that we all have. We all have some relationship, good or bad, with food. and we should really read this book. It's a quick read, and it's not intense, but it's a quick read. It's a good read, and it gives you a lot of information on Mart-Mari's journey. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll see you real soon. Bye now.
Thank you. Thank you.